Glacier Bay. This national park is one of Alaska's most visited attractions. Is there any wonder? In Glacier Bay, you can literally sail back in time 4,000 years and see firsthand the Little Ice Age. Here, face to face with mighty glaciers, you can watch and listen as huge chunks of ice crumble into the sea. The Tlingit Indians spoke of the white thunder from Glacier Bay. Their legend talks of hunting seals, runs of salmon, and the village life close to the great glacier. As the story is told, the village was moved after a young maiden used supernatural power, calling the glacier to advance toward the village. All of the people eventually moved to the site of present-day Hoona, except for one, an old woman who lived under the ice with the ice people. Glacier Bay National Park is located 60 miles northwest of Juneau on Alaska's southeastern panhandle. The 3-million-acre park is roughly the size of the state of Connecticut. It is home to as many as 12 tidewater glaciers. As you tour Glacier Bay, you'll see several other glaciers whose long stretch from the mountain ice fields now end just yards above the inlets. In the space of only 200 years, many of these glaciers have receded dramatically, giving birth to new fjords and islands. All of the waterways now used by cruise ships and kayakers alike were under an ice mantle up to 4,000 feet thick when Captain George Vancouver charted these waters in 1794. Vancouver's maps and logs recorded a solid mountain of ice near the entrance of what is now Glacier Bay. Shortly after the Civil War, naturalist John Muir found Vancouver's charts useless in locating this great glacier. Muir found in October 1879 that the wall of ice seen by Vancouver had retreated more than 40 miles, opening uncharted waters and exposing 5 tidewater glaciers. His poetic accounts of this icy kingdom attracted the first tourists who came by steamship to see firsthand this natural wonder. By the late 1800s, Muir Glacier was considered one of the wonders of the world. Steamships were bringing tourists by the hundreds, and the Great Glacier of Alaska was attracting the attention of scientists. Over the years, John Muir made 4 trips to Glacier Bay, and made note of the many tourists he encountered.
What a show they made with their ribbons and Kodaks. All seemed happy and enthusiastic, though it was curious to see how promptly all of them ceased gazing when the dinner bell rang.
When these photos were taken in the late 1800s, Muir Glacier stretched 2 miles across the valley. This is Muir Glacier today. It has retreated more than 25 miles in the last century alone. With an ice face of less than a quarter mile, Muir Glacier is merely a shadow of its former self. The rapid recession of glaciers at Glacier Bay has given scientists an unparalleled opportunity to study plant succession, to watch as barren land returns to life and matures into coastal forests. This natural laboratory is one reason Glacier Bay was declared a national monument in 1925 and named a national park in 1980. Through the decades, the growth of tourism in Glacier Bay has been almost as dramatic as the decline of glaciers. More than 250,000 tourists visit this national park each year. Most view the glaciers and jagged mountain peaks of the Fairweather Range from the decks of cruise ships and smaller tour boats. The west arm of Glacier Bay is the area most visited by cruise ships. At the head of Tar Inlet, 65 miles from the entrance of Glacier Bay, are 2 tidewater glaciers, Marjorie and Grand Pacific. Over the last few decades, the Grand Pacific has both receded and advanced. In fact, at one time in the 1960s, the glacier receded far enough into Canada that the government considered building a seaport there. Since then, the glacier has advanced back into the United States. The stunning Johns Hopkins Inlet is flanked by several mountains that rise from sea level to over 6,000 feet. Mount Fairweather, the highest peak in the area, reaches over 15,000 feet. At the head of this inlet is the Johns Hopkins Glacier. Fed from heavy snows in the ice fields above, Johns Hopkins is one tidewater glacier in Glacier Bay that in recent times still advanced. For most of the 20th century, this imposing river of ice moved slowly down the valley, advancing 3 miles. Ice calved into the inlet makes a perfect resting spot for one of Glacier Bay's year-round residents. Harbor seals are a common sight, resting atop icebergs near the face of glaciers. They find protection here. Predators, like the orca whales, are less likely to hunt among the dense ice than in ice-free areas of the bay. Mother seals will actually give birth atop these bergs. As you venture up bay, following the path of glacial retreat, you're likely to see some of the other animals inhabiting the bay. Among the 200 species of birds in Glacier Bay is the black oyster catcher. He'll use his specialized red bill to chisel open mussels, clams, and other food from the rocky shoreline. These pelagic cormorants are diving birds. They'll swim underwater feeding on small fish. When they're ashore, cormorants are often seen sunning themselves. Unlike ducks, the cormorant's wings are not totally waterproof, and before they take flight, they need to dry out. Another diver, and one of the more popular and colorful summer guests to Glacier Bay, is the puffin. These tufted and horned puffins prefer areas like the Marble Islands to nest. The summer breeding period is the only time during the year that the puffins come to dry land. Puffins are actually better suited to swimming than flying. You'll often see puffins running across the surface of the water until they get enough speed to lift themselves into the air. Another summer visitor to Glacier Bay is the stellar sea lion. This is a haul-out for these noisy marine mammals. Stellar sea lions are listed as a threatened species under the United States Endangered Species Act. While the stellar sea lion population in southeast Alaska is healthy, researchers have noted a rapid drop in the sea lion population over much of Alaska. Some biologists believe the sea lions are slowly starving to death, and some suggest that commercial overfishing of fish the sea lions rely on is to blame. It is also possible that their depressed numbers are part of a long-term natural cycle. Research continues, but for now, the reason for the sea lions' decline remains a mystery. This noisy kittiwake colony is near the face of Marjorie Glacier. These black-legged kittiwakes nest here for protection and convenience. As ice falls from the nearby glacier, the turbulent water stirs up shrimp and krill, making it easier for the birds to feed. One of the smallest creatures to be found in Glacier Bay is the fabled iceworm. Iceworms were discovered in 1887 on Muir Glacier. They are the only known animals to live in glaciers. During the summer, these needle-sized worms can be seen near the glacier's surface, where they feed on algae. From the smallest of animals to the largest, the unmistakable sound of the blow of a humpback whale signals it's showtime in Glacier Bay. Anytime whales are near, all eyes are focused on them. The humpbacks of Glacier Bay are a part of a fragile, interdependent ecosystem. In 1978, up to 24 humpback whales that had regularly spent the summer feeding in the rich waters left prematurely. Federal wildlife officials were concerned that boat traffic in the bay may have altered their behavior. The number of cruise ships and pleasure craft allowed in Glacier Bay are now limited in an effort to reduce the impact on the humpback whales and other species. The humpbacks are still a regular sight near the mouth of Glacier Bay, and they put on quite a show for those lucky enough to visit these magnificent waters. If there is one constant in Glacier Bay, it is change. While today most glaciers are receding to the head of their valleys, tomorrow they may advance once again. The Glacier Bay we see today will be different tomorrow, and one day the ice may rule the entire valley once again.
Alaska's Glacier Bay is a region still emerging from its long frozen sleep under the ice. Dark ribbons of broken rock are hauled toward the sea by the grinding glaciers that sculpt the mountains and remodel the land. glaciers bulldoze down the valleys with the harsh weight of 1,000 winters. In the glacier's path, nearly all that existed of life, of plants or animals or man, is swept away. Ice grips the land in a deadly embrace, yet the mass of the ice itself is living. "200 years ago, a single great tongue of ice lay in Glacier Bay. We are still in the midst of an ice age that has seen 4 major periods of glacial advance and 4 retreats. The pullback of the ice continues today. Retreating ice leaves a void, an empty stage for the opening of another ancient drama. The process of life returning to land just released from its glacial prison. Even as the ice melts, giving up the barren earth, nature's grand design for the land's renewal is waiting. From spores carried on the wind, from seeds in the droppings of birds, from the chemistry of water, soil, and sun, the first forms of new life emerge. A spot of lichen or a button of moss holding forth on barren rock. Then the pioneer mountain avens lay down a fertile blanket for the roots of alder, willow, and cottonwood. From the tangle of alder, willow, and cottonwood thickets, young spruces shoulder up toward the sun. Final realization of climax forest, hemlock giants rise above the spruce.
It's almost heavier on that tree than on the other.
Several thousand years ago, the glacier advanced over an ancient forest, the climax of an earlier plant succession that reached to the upper bay. Sand and gravel drifted around the bases of some of the trees before the ice moved over them. As the ice began to recede at the mouth of the bay 200 years ago, the stumps of the old trees were uncovered. The glaciers are melting, but their decline is fitful. One finger of the ice may grind forward as another shrinks. A glacier retreating this year may lunge ahead next, only to fall back at some future time. A change of 2 or 3 degrees in the region's temperature could bring the ice thundering again to the sea. No one knows how many times before life may have flourished here, nor do we know when ice may claim the bay again. Glacier Bay is a theater of primal dramas and a reassurance of the continuing triumph of life on the earth.